everybody for being here this fine Father's Day morning. I'd like to share my teacher had given me a homework assignment that will probably last a lifetime. And I want to share with you a little bit where I've been at, what I've been studying. And hopefully we can study this together. It's interesting, when we talk about study, the Chinese character for study is, if I'm not mistaken here, my Chinese is very rudimentary, but the Chinese character for it is equal to the same character for waking up, or sometimes translated as enlightenment. This piece here has to do with a child. And so to study is to recall what it's like to have a beginner's mind. As adults, we feel the need in our society to be the experts at things, to know everything. And kids are looking to us, and they're learning that. That's what they're learning. They're learning how to be experts. But the problem is we got to go the opposite direction. We got to look the opposite direction, look to the children, look here to the children, and learn how to be beginners. That's really our job. It's not about, this practice isn't about knowing some special thing, not about gaining some special wisdom or some special knowledge. That's the opposite. If we think we think we know something, be careful. It's not about that at all. So what I like to talk about is I mentioned my teacher gave me a homework assignment, and it's going to take me forever to study it, but I'm enjoying it. I really am. There's these characters that I want to share with you today that are really important for our practice. Does anybody know Japanese or Chinese? Anybody studied it a little bit? A little bit, Mike? Okay. Get these. Okunai wa toku kei nari. So these are the three characters that I want to focus this presentation, this talk on. And we've been studying Chinese characters this weekend. Right, Friday we did a calligraphy workshop. We had a lot of fun doing that, studying release. And does anybody see anything that did the calligraphy workshop? Any similar characters here that we did? You got it. Yeah. This piece here is similar. So this is the way you start to learn and make associations and understand Japanese and Chinese. I say Japanese and Chinese because in Japanese there are three writing systems, and the main one, kanji, which means Chinese characters, was wholesale imported from China. The Japanese pronunciation of the Chinese characters is different, but the meaning is very similar, if not the same. And the Japanese often have abbreviated the Chinese characters somewhat. That's the only difference, but so that's why I kind of go back and forth between Japanese and Chinese, saying what it is. But let's look at this particular saying, and what I'm going to do, we're going to look at this particular saying and look at how Dogen might think about this and where this saying might come from, and then apply it to our own practice. This is applicable. It doesn't matter, right? This isn't about being Buddhist. It's about our life. It's about living our life fully. So the first character is really, really important. It could mean practice. Right? We're always talking about practice in a Zen temple. We're talking about the practice. We're not talking about if you believe this or if you get that state of mind. We're talking about practice. It's an activity. It's an action. It can also be translated as conduct, right? Our way of being, the way we use our physical body, the way that we employ our mind, the attitude that we bring to what we do. All of this encompasses this particular character. And if we look at the two sides of it, there's two halves. Often to these characters, there's two halves. The left side means to walk slowly, right? This side here, to walk slowly. These are footsteps. It could often also mean to step with the left foot. To step with the left foot. I'm taking a step with the left foot slowly. And the right side, guess what that means?
Just step with the right foot slowly.
Bingo. Bingo, yeah. This is to step with the right foot, right? You've got, this is what we're doing. We're just putting one foot in front of the other. This is practice. This one foot, we talk about taking one step at a time, right? It's not about some futuristic thing, 1,000 years from now, 100 years from now, the end of the world. We're talking about the concrete here and now, things that we do, everydayness. It's not about these special robes or shaving your head or wearing some special costume. It's really how we are in this very moment, right? Putting one foot in front of the other. Another translation of this is to stop suddenly when walking. To stop, you're walking and then all of a sudden you stop. There's something that maybe catches your attention, or you pause for a second. Right? So it invokes a sense of mindfulness in what we're doing. It's not just unconsciously going through our day. Everything is invoked with a sense of presence. This is this practice. This is Gyo, or the Japanese reading Okonaiwa. The second character is Toku. This is also training. In a Zen context, this character means training, but it encompasses all of these other meanings. Toku is honest, sincere. This is the mind. This is the attitude we want to have when we're performing anything. If we're coming into the temple, we're sitting zazen, we want to bring honesty to our practice. We're not fooling ourselves. We're not going to try to fool other people. Like, I got some special realization. We're not trying to fool people. We're just being honest with our deluded minds. We're recognizing that we have delusion and we also have enlightenment. Those things are wrapped up in one. So let's look at all these meanings. Honest, sincere, wholehearted. This is an important one for Dogen, a wholehearted way. This is often what Dogen talks about, the wholehearted way. You can also say calm or leisurely. All of those are possibilities for this particular character. Deep, profound. This is the attitude we want to bring to our zazen. It's the attitude we want to bring to our life. It's not just about that. It's what we want to bring to what we're doing. Right? What is it that you're doing? That's the question. It's not about a special thing we do on Sundays. It's about our whole life. Right? What is it that you're doing? It doesn't have to be even related to Zen, what you're doing. But can you bring honesty, sincerity, wholeheartedness to the activity that you're doing? If it's mowing the lawn, right? do that wholeheartedly. If it's saying good morning to your father on Father's Day, do that wholeheartedly with sincerity. Mean it. Right? We got to mean what we do. We're not just going through things rote. Right? When we're sitting zazen, we're not spacing out. We are actively in the process of being Buddhas, and we're waking up to that together with the Buddha. Okay, and then the last character here, this one is K, K-E-I, and it means to respect, to honor. Again, this is, honoring Father's Day, right? Honor our parents, honor our father. I called my parents this morning just to wish my father a happy Father's Day. It doesn't matter how wonderful your father is or how maybe you feel your father has a lot to learn. Right? Some of us have real bad relationships with our father. That doesn't matter. We're not trying to fix our parents here. We're just bringing an attitude of respect to the relationship. They brought us into the world. That's what we're honoring there. But we can do that with anything that we're engaged with. It could mean to offer. This one could mean to offer something, make an offering. So what we just did with offering the cake to Nonan, this is the attitude that we want to bring to our practice, to our training, sense of respect, honor. Right? When we offer that cake to how do we say, the deceased abbot, we do it with a sense of honor. Or devotion, that's another possible meaning for this particular character. To devote, to put yourself 100% into what you're doing. Right? To focus all your attention on what you're doing, not with a distracted mind. This doesn't mean we don't have thoughts that distract us. When we notice thoughts about other things coming in, as they will, then we come back to the present moment, right? Bring our attention back to what we're doing. So my loose translation of these three Chinese characters, which is a saying in Chinese, is conduct that is wholehearted and devoted. So I want to, where does this Chinese saying come from? We're going to get to that, but I want to find, there's some things in Dogen Shobo Genzo Zui Monki that point us in the direction. These are really practical teachings for our daily living, daily life, outside of Sunday, special time, Monday also, Tuesday and Wednesday. We want to practice these things every day. Okay. So let's see some of the things that Dogen says. Real simple, easy teaching. It is not possible to study extensively and obtain wide knowledge. That's a relief, isn't it? Sometimes we feel like we should know everything, right? That's oftentimes what an adult thinks. They get a question and they think they should know everything. I remember starting to feel frustrated. I love my father. I remember starting to feel frustrated that every time I asked my father a question, he would know the answer to it. So I make it a point now as a father to my own son to be okay about saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. It's a little different than so anyways, we can Google, Dogen says. We can Google it. He doesn't say it. He wrote in the 13th century. But we can Google anything we want to know today. Any knowledge we want to know. Just type it in. And now we've got AI to consolidate all of that information into like one thing.
Or to lie to us about.
Or to lie to, right, depending on the sources and stuff. So, but anyways, we can find so much information. The question we have to ask ourselves is this relevant to our life? Is this really helpful to us? Is it necessary for us, for our happiness and our well-being, to know everything? Does knowledge equal happiness? That's the question we should be asking. He says, make up your mind and just give up trying to do so. Give up trying to study extensively. Make up your mind. Focus your attention on one thing. Focus your attention on one thing. In other words, do what you're doing fully. Study the things you have to know. He's not saying be ignorant. He's not saying don't study. He's saying study the things that you have to know. We've got a question. What do we have to know? And the traditional examples of it. Follow the way of practice of your predecessors. Concentrate your efforts on one practice. Right? Just concentrate your efforts on one practice. I want to compare this to a saying in the Analects of Confucius, because as we were studying the Genjo Koan on Saturday afternoon, we were looking at some of the, Dogen comes out of a particular context that we really can't ignore when we're studying Dogen. Just as you and I come out of a particular cultural context. If we were brought up in America, we're brought up with certain American values, often that are imbued with Christian values, and they form the way that we think. And in the same way, Dogen has been informed by Chinese culture and Confucian values. And so I'm not surprised when I read the Analects of Confucius and I hear Confucius saying, do not plan the policies of an office you do not hold. Right? So in other words, don't try to figure out somebody else's job for them, thinking you can do a better job than they're doing. Focus on your own job. But what do we do? I tell my wife how she should be a mom. Right? That's my mistake. I'm just revealing my own mistake. And I'm only saying that so that we each reflect on how we actually try to plan other people's jobs for them. That's my mistake, telling my wife how she should be a mom. Not a good idea. Or telling my father how he should be a father. Rather, change it around, turn it around. How do I be a father? Master Zheng commented, the thoughts of exemplary people do not wander beyond their station. Do not wander beyond their station. This is, again, this emphasis on focusing on what you're doing. It's not simply a Zen thing. It's a cultural practice. Gyo, that character right there. It's a practice in a whole culture. The other one, Suiwonki 2-5. Okay. So now Dogen's talking to, in many cases, he's talking to monks, and he's telling them this is what we should be thinking about. So keep it in that context. He's talking to a bunch of monks who don't have jobs outside of temple life. So he says, the biography of Eisai of Kenninji, this is one of his former teachers, was written by the vice minister Akikane, a lay monk. So in that time they had lay monks too. A lay monk, somebody who was both in the world of the lay as well as a priest, kind of somebody in between there. At first he refused to make this biography of this Zen teacher. He said, quote, it should be written by a Confucian scholar. There's that Confucian connection again. Because such scholars forget their own bodies and devote themselves to studying from early childhood. Therefore, there are no mistakes in their writings. For ordinary people working for the government and social intercourse are their primary concerns. They study on the side. Although there have been some eminent people, there have been mistakes in their writings. So Dogen says he says, thinking of this, ancient people forgot their bodies in order to study even non-Buddhist texts. So it's not, again, it's bigger than Zen or Buddhism. But what does he mean by forget their bodies? He often uses this term, drop off mind and body. I don't think he's saying that we should not be mindful or aware of our body, but in whatever activity we're doing, we're in the zone. We're in a zone. Just like, Michael Jordan dribbling the basketball and making hoops. He's not thinking about other things. He's totally in the moment. And he's forgotten about himself, in a sense. Not completely, but he's forgotten about himself. And there's been times when you've been in the zone. You stop thinking about all the things that you have to do, and you just get to work on what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's mowing the lawn, it's mowing the lawn. If it's washing the dishes, it's washing the dishes. Brushing your teeth, picking up a child. What else do we do? Driving the car. That's a hard one because we got to stay still and move at the same time. Think about that. We're moving so practically still when we're driving. But then this vehicle we're in, we're moving, so it makes it really hard. This is where Zazen can be helpful to us, I think. Just focus on the drive. All right, just maybe one more here. Yeah. Two more. Even people in the secular world, Dogen says, must concentrate on one thing and learn it thoroughly enough to be able to do it in front of others, rather than learn many things at the same time without truly accomplishing any of them. So don't multitask, he's saying. Don't try to do a million things at once. His disciple asks Dogen, he says, if this is so, what thing or what practice should we choose to devote ourselves to among the various ways of practice of the Buddha Dharma? So this is a question from a monk, and Dogen is responding to a monk about what do we do, if this is the case and we've dedicated ourselves to the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, that's our duty in life, and they've put aside all other work obligations and only devoted themselves to practicing the Buddha Dharma. Right? What do I do? He's asking, what do I do? Dogen replied, it depends upon one's character or capability. It depends on one's character or capability. So he's saying right at the start there may be multiple possibilities here. However, up to now, he says, now he kind of just hones in, he says, it is Zazen, which had been handed down and concentrated on in the communities of ancestors. This practice, Dogen believed, is suitable for all people. And I love this part, he says, and can be practiced by those of superior, mediocre, or inferior capabilities. So anybody. All right, now, so I think this is another way of saying, if you're a monk, then practice wholeheartedly Zazen. But if you're a lay person and you're practicing Zazen, practice wholeheartedly Zazen. Don't confuse it with a million other types of practices. I'm not averse to studying other forms of meditation, but it also I think it can be a distraction, to be honest with you. I'm not averse to people learning in the Tibetan style or the Vipassana style or all these other styles. You can learn all of those things, but Dogen's saying, just focus on one thing. It's not that the other things are bad. Just focus on one thing. You don't have to know all of it. Knowing all of it is it's like my teacher would say, you're digging a well for water, and you give up after a few shovelfuls, and you start another hole someplace else, and you give up after a few and you never really reach the bottom where the water starts to spring up. dig a hole in one spot. Again, I don't want to say that we should not study other forms of meditation. I certainly have, but just focus on one. Just do one thing. Don't try to mix. When you're doing Zazen, don't mix it with other forms of meditation. Just do Zazen. This saying, actually, I learned thanks to a friend of mine who, Jay Shao, who pointed this out to me. This particular saying, these three Chinese characters actually appear directly in the Analects of Confucius. 15, it's chapter 15.6. Zhijiang asked about proper conduct. Conduct here is the translation of this gyo. He asked about conduct. And Confucius replied, if you do your utmost, another wonderful character, if you do your utmost, this Chinese character with a center and heart, your heart being in the center of what you're doing, you're completely devoted to what you're doing. If you make good on your word, remember that Chinese character, Xin? It's for my name, it's also found in the Xin Xin Mei, the faith in mind that we chant sometimes. Make good on your word, and you are earnest and respectful in your conduct. Earnestness, and that's what these words are, earnest and respectful in your conduct. Being earnest and respectful in your conduct. And this is just being a good citizen, basically. Earnest, devotional, respectful to others. Your conduct will be proper. We need to ask ourselves, is my conduct, is my practice proper? And what can you look at for yourself to determine whether it's proper or not? Well, how earnest are you? How sincere are you? How devoted are you to what you're doing in the present moment? Usually we have some time for questions. If you want to offer questions or comments.
Thank you so much. So where'd you get this saying from? Did you say your teacher? Or?
Yes. My teacher gave me a book that's all in Japanese. I couldn't read any of it, and it's full of calligraphy practices. Actually, I have it upstairs if you want to take a look. I meant to bring it down, and I couldn't. And so she gave this to me maybe 10 years ago. And as I've studied calligraphy, I've wondered, I always look for what should I write. Well, she gave me this thing to write. So I began to study these various things, and I'm just learning them. I'm just, looking them up, looking up the characters one by one. But they're characters, they're sayings that come out of Chinese culture that are borrowed by Zen masters when they're doing calligraphy practice.
So in that book, these three go together.
These three go together. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and you can find it exactly in the Analects as well.
So I've been thinking about this, coming up, bring practice into work, especially.
Right. That's it.
And I feel like I think the central practice is awareness. Quite simply, aware that you are aware. And what usually happens is I come in, I'm like, okay, this is my agenda for the day, and then I get completely distracted with whatever the hell I'm doing. And I can never stay anchored. And I've started to wonder if it's not maybe a fundamental shift in intention. So habitually, my intention is whatever the task at hand is, right? I've got 2 apprentices, I'm keeping them rolled out, and I put bigger picture, blueprint, construction. But is it, how do I stay anchored Do I need to shift my intention to, okay, what we produce today is on the back burner? The awareness is a primary intention. I don't even know if I
Well, I mean, there's multiple layers here of what you can do. I don't think there's one thing, but you said you have some people working for you as
I do.
well. So how is your relationship with them? Is there an honoring of that relationship in a sincere way? Can there be improvement? You know, there's always room for improvement. That's the good thing, right? There's room for improvement in how you relate to the people that you're working with.
Yeah. That's why we want to bring the practice in.
What's that?
That's why we want to bring the practice into it.
Right.
Because we believe it can improve.
Right, and just in, you know, you may want to look at, get their input more. I don't know the situation, so you take my response here with a grain of salt.
I appreciate your help.
Yeah, but that's one thought that comes to my mind. And then the other thing is, did you get yourself a good cup of coffee? Keep your mind focused on the task at hand. When we're focused on the product, that sometimes interferes with, you know, if we're focused on the success, producing something and it's going to be successful, that can get often in the way of just simply doing it. The other thing is, how much do we believe in what we're doing? Is it something that we are earnest about, that we love ourselves? Is it really our duty? Is it really or are we doing it because we are clicking some boxes for what our family wants us to do, or thinking that that's a role that we're supposed to play versus something that we are earnestly invested in and really believe in?
Or have doubts about the practice.
Ken's question kind of brings up for me in studying the paramitas, the difference between mindfulness and concentration. So the general awareness and mindfulness is sort of a, you know, universal. It's like, what's going on right here, you know, in all aspects, bringing everything in. Concentration, on the other hand, is focusing in on one thing, which is kind of what we've been talking about. So, you know, sometimes I think focusing on the awareness thing is a little bit different than focusing on concentration.
I think it's a good point. Yeah, there's open awareness and then there's concentration, and both are parts of what we would call practice. We're doing them both. So it's not you know, it's not exactly focusing on one thing all the time. My teacher would continually scold me about getting too focused on one thing. So you got to keep your mind open and aware of everything that's going on around you, not just the one thing in front of you. That seems exactly opposite of what I've just been saying. But that's part of it too, is the concentration can be on everything, not just on the one thing. Sometimes, because I think the problem, especially with certain character types, we can focus in on one thing at the exclusion of what's going on around us. And what I'm saying is focusing in such a way is that we're not being distracted by extraneous things, thoughts, other things like that, but not at the exclusion of everything else. So we have to keep in mind, like, okay, how much time do I have for this activity? Who am I working with? What is their particular state of mind at this moment? What's going to work beneficial? What thing can I have them do that will be helpful for them? How much time do I want to allot to different activities? And all of these things. Even as I'm giving this talk, I'm thinking, okay, we have a limited amount of time within which to have this conversation. Everything is, and we're going to have that cake there too, right? And people's bellies and saliva is moving in the mouth. So thinking about all of these things. It's all part of the practice.
Well, that's interesting what you just said, because I had previously previously thought about concentration and mindfulness as a shift. But you're talking about them at the same time.
Yeah, it's not that like,
Yeah.
all right, we do one and then the other, it's
Yeah,
just like this, it's all part of it.
That reminds me of back in the day, practicing known as Eno during sessions. I had to be sitting I was in or planning a schedule or doing whatever I need to do at the time. But I'm also trying to keep track of what other people are doing at the same time.
Right,
And so you get, especially with sessions, you get in kind of this 365-degree view of the world. You're practicing what's going on right now, but I'm hearing things going on in the other room. So I kind of know if something's being late, or if there's not something going right in the kitchen, or something like that, because then I'm kind of the fixer. I have to kind of go in there and see what's going on. You need help, what's going on.
this is the point of having a Zen temple, is that we can verify for ourselves what practice is, and it's very applicable, I think, to our wider world, just like you're describing. If you're given one duty, you often have to have your eyes and ears open to other things that are happening around you. I know that's really true when you're cooking in the kitchen. You have to have your eye, you can't just focus on one dish at the exclusion of everything else. And if you have other people cooking with you, you've got to give them jobs to do. You got to think about the timing of things, keeping the meal hot and serving it at the right time. You have to think about the various diets and exceptions to what you're making, and all of these things come into play. So it's not just one. You gotta take off?
We gotta go.
All right, well, thanks for joining. You don't want any cake?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, okay. Well, thanks for coming.
You have a good rest of the day.
You too, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Kind of like how I imagine a mother with very young children are. She's concentrating on what she's doing, but she knows where her kids are at.
Right, yeah, multiple moving parts at times.
Right.
So it does make it hard to focus on one thing. But the one thing is not one thing. One thing is these multiple moving parts.
To follow up, since Ken raised the issue of like livelihood, and one thing you had mentioned here was like, is this, actually aligned with our sense of purpose here?
Right.
I know that is something in my own livelihood that I tend to struggle with to a certain extent. I work as an engineer in a dam safety program, and there is this narrow sense of like, oh, I don't want this structure to fail and hurt somebody, and so I'm glad to participate in keeping that safe. There's also this broader legacy here, like the first treaty that the US signed with any native peoples here with the Seneca was violated by the US building a dam that flooded sacred land. And that's been something of a pattern here going forward. And I know when I'm seeing to the maintenance of the dams, like, oh, we're having to remove trees, remove rodents, tear down beaver dams downstream. And I feel like, this sort of destruction involved. And so there's a tendency for me when I'm at my job to kind of, give the minimum, like to do what's needed to not make sure this dam fails, but also like if I have a few extra hours at the office, I've seen to my duties, I'm not going to go the extra mile, and to fill that time in the office when I don't have anything else to do, but I can't give my time to things I believe in because I still have to be at the office, that's when all the distractions come in. When I'm flitting around on Twitter or, reading up on the news or something like that. And I'm hoping, you have something to say about those, gap times when we're kind of caught between, here are my obligations and here's what I can do. that's, for me, the hardest time to kind of stay anchored to anything. And so, I know that's a very big question, sorry to just like spring that here. but-
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so if I hear you, I don't have an answer, but if I hear you, I just want to make sure I clarify your question.
Sure.
Is that you have certain jobs to do. There is some question mark about whether what you're doing is actually good. I mean, on one hand, you're by making the dam safe, you're preventing loss of life and that kind of thing. On the other hand, is the initial building of the dam was in a violation of a treaty with native peoples. So there's this living with this kind of like a double life almost, right? So which one do you how do you reconcile that? And so just to answer that, right, the Zen practice is not about coming down on one side or the other. And this creates tension, it creates sense of vulnerability. You have this opportunity to open up to a certain degree to the pain that's present in that particular livelihood, having to be in that situation. So it's another practice opportunity, and how you manage that is your koan. That's your real Genjo koan. It's like that. What do I do here? At the same time, you're in this position where you know that, and another person, if they were to take your position, they might not even care. So the fact that you're in that position and you care is a big service to society, that you're in that position and you care about what you're doing. I think that's the important thing, is that you care, that you recognize this and keep that alive. And you don't have to, what you do with that will be up to you, but just to keep it alive, at least in your own heart, and that kind of inherent suffering in the job that you're doing has contradictions, right? There's a contradiction of the paradox of I'm trying to help people, at the same time, maybe not, right? That's a real insight into your own job, and I think it's important to keep that there. If you're the one person in your workplace that thinks like that, they have a very valuable employee with them, and they may not recognize it, but from a Dharma perspective, you're offering a great service to your company and to everybody, just by keeping that awareness, that contradictoriness alive in your heart. That's my feelings. It's a hard place to be in, and I wouldn't, whatever you decide to do is obviously up to you, but
Thank you.
it's workable. Everything is workable with practice. Shall we enjoy some cake?
Sure.
Good. That's easy. Enjoy cake. Thank you, Nonan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Many beings are numberless, bowing to carry them across.
Many beings are numberless, bowing to carry them across.
Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, bowing to cut off the vine road.
Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, bowing to cut off the mind road.
Dharma gates are countless, bowing to wake to them all.
Dharma gates are countless, bowing to wake to them all.
Buddha's way is all embracing, bowing to follow through.
Buddha's way is all embracing, bowing
follow through.
I don't have any particular announcement on the top of my head right now, but I did notice that Sharmila might have brought in something with the eat, so we have bounty. So let's enjoy tea, coffee, conversation, and a birthday cake. We can take the cake into the kitchen or cut it and we'll take that to in there.
Wonderful, yeah, let's take some photos of us enjoying the
I guess we should also mention that Benji gathered all the ripe blackberries off the fence this morning, and,
There's a lot.
they're available too.
Enjoy them, yeah, some of them on the cake. They'll only be around for a few days. Yep, organic, no spray.
Get them for the possums, get them.
Yeah.
And next month, we have one announcement, we have Session next month, right?
Oh, yes, we are having Sesshin next month when Daishin is here again the weekend of the 21st, I believe it is, of July. So, mark your calendars if you're interested in the 3-day Sesshin. Basically Friday from midday through Sunday midday. And we'll have more details on the website.
And you can sign up for part, right?
Yeah, I guess we haven't talked about that.
Usually, you can't do the whole thing.
You can stay the night too.
Tomorrow.
That's what I'm doing.
It's nice movie.
Wow.